Hey guys, welcome back to London Detective Mysteria, where this time we are going to do Mr. John Watson Jr.'s route. So, the other half of our dynamic duo of everybody's favorite boy detectives, also more famously known as the Disney Princess. So, yeah, it's going to be fun doing his route. We're probably going to be, at least I'm planning on playing through most of the game again. Watson is in most of the game. So I don't want to miss out on interactions with him. So I'm probably going to do very little skipping unless I can be absolutely sure that I can stop in time to see Watson. Because there's no scrolling back in this game. Not really. Yeah, and plus I also want to see if I can pick up on any hints in the story that are hinting towards the actual overarching story that's coming up once you do all the routes. So yeah, now that I know a little bit of what I know, maybe I can pick up on some hints along the way. So yeah, should be a fun time. Let's start with when he rescues our champagne glass.
Pardon me, but would you care for a drink?
The man presented a tray with several amber-colored champagne glasses. I'd love one, thank you.
Here you are then, my lady.
I didn't even have to hold it very close to my nose to catch the glass's rich aroma. It was whilst wandering around the hall, drink in hand and amazement never ceasing, that two very distinct voices suddenly caught my attention. Here we go.
Well, this is certainly a party, isn't it?
Ah, my old boo.
Naturally, one fit for a queen. Or so we've been led to think. A hallway so vast means nothing with as many blind spots as there are guests. Anything could happen here and no one would be any the wiser. Oh, stop. A bit too dark for the occasion, I think. Now I just wish I could spot the inspector. He must be fed up to his ears waiting for us.
The boys passed me by, wrapped in conversation. Oops! And in a completely unrelated incident, the shoulder of the guest behind me collided with the hand holding my champagne glass. The glass was thrust from my hand and went soaring through the air. Oh, dash it! It's going to break! My eyes closed. I couldn't bring myself to watch it shatter.
That was close. Are you alright?
Me? Strangely, no such awful sound came. There was a pause, but there was no sense of public humiliation waiting for my eyes to open. All very opposite to what I expected. There we go. Rather, one of those passing boys was before me with my champagne in hand.
And your dress? Did you spill anything on it?
The taller boy, with the chestnut-colored hair, smiled as he returned the glass. Nerves gave way to relief. There was an ease to him that was infectious. I don't believe so, but thank you for asking.
That's good to hear.
Smile still holding true, he made certain I was holding the glass steadily in my hand again before fully letting go.
Would have been a shame if a party like this was ruined over a dirty dress. Watson, are you quite done? We don't have time for this. Oh, sorry, I'm coming. Enjoy the party.
I will. You as well. With a wink, he turned and was ready to continue on his way. The other boy, shorter by comparison and with black hair, spared me a quick, impatient glance and nothing more.
You're the one who said he must be fed up to his ears. Hurry it up. I apologized, didn't I?
And that was that. They're a rather odd couple. Are they not guests? Of all the guests here, they were the only ones dressed in clothes suited to a simpler occasion. Come to think of it, the name Watson is familiar, but from where? It didn't take long to recall where I'd heard it. I remember! They're detectives! Like Sherlock Holmes and John Watson! Then he must be...
Dr. John Watson's son, I would assume.
As I suspected, which makes the dark-haired boy...
The son of Sherlock Holmes, yes.
So he's the Sherlock Holmes.
They say Watson's son plays the role of assistant also. To Holmes Jr., of course.
Well, now that I know who they are, that explains why they don't appear to be here for the party.
Neither were born from the aristocracy, so I suppose they wouldn't. Could they have been summoned to investigate something, then?
Did something happen?
Shh! My lady, your voice is much too loud.
Oh, how unladylike. But I'm curious. If Holmes Jr. is here, there must be a reason. That childish urge to investigate further was growing. Of course, Pendleton was with me, and he would never allow it. Well, better to beg forgiveness and ask permission, as they say. My word! Look at this adorable flower arrangement. That sunny glow, that summery flare. It's perfect for a party like this, isn't it? We should have some for the mansion. I pointed to the flowers decorating the hall.
You have a keen eye, my lady. Those are an impressive display of Her Majesty's favorite white roses. Their vibrancy gives color to the halls in a way few other things could. If I'm able, I'd love to use them for future reference. Note the remarkably fine balance between the leaves and blossoms. Ah, excuse me. They are lovely, yes, but it will take more than flowers for today to go well. The heart of the British Empire is at stake, so were even one thing to go amiss... My lady? Every single time. The moment I turn away, off she goes.
Sorry, Pendleton. After escaping Pendleton's watchful eye, I eagerly began to pursue Holmes and Watson. Where did they go? I was so certain this was the way. There were so many guests. I knew this before, of course, but the number felt so much greater when I had to search through them. Yet I soon met success. The boys were still amongst the crowd, their clothes giving them away.
Quickly, Watson. I'm coming! Don't leave me behind!
I followed after the two boys.
Right this way, gentlemen.
That uniform must make him an officer of the Yard. Our proud London Police Department was none other than Scotland Yard. Save for the City of London itself, their jurisdiction covered the entirety of Greater London. But isn't the Queen's Guard charged with protecting the royal family? Why would they be here?
I'm here to speak to Inspector Lestrade, please.
Of course. He's been waiting for you. Right this way.
Thank you!
They gave their thanks to the officer before briskly passing him into a room deep within the palace. Ah, so it was Scotland Yard that summoned them. That officer seemed rather agitated, too. Has something gone wrong after all? As I considered the possibilities, the extravagance of the party and eager whispers in anticipation of Her Majesty's arrival faded into the background. Then a terrible thought occurred. It can't be! Did something happen to Her Majesty? I can't stand idly by! There was no suppressing my growing curiosity. I made certain no one was looking before I motioned towards the room and slipped behind a curtain.
Hello there. Hope you didn't mind the short notice. I did try to telephone your father, but as he so often is, he had his hands full with another case.
Holmes greeted the man with a frown.
I don't believe talk of my father is relevant. Now, what's happened here?
Ah, true enough. My fault. I tell you, we've been searching every corner, but we've come up short on all counts.
Could you make it brief? We don't have much time, do we?
I knew it! Something happened. But what could they be searching for?
If possible, I should like to speak to the Queen directly as well.
What? Directly, you say?
Directly, yes. One can solve nothing without data, and it would be best to have her confirm a few things, so, if you would, Inspector.
Absolutely not! Her Majesty is too busy preparing for the ceremony.
Inspector.
Holmes's stance was one of assumed superiority, and the assumption was correct, for the inspector crumbled immediately.
From what I hear, 5 of the cases you've undertaken this year have still yet to be solved. Is that correct?
Where did...
Let us concern ourselves with the strangling case in Piccadilly. The events occurred at 8 o'clock at night, and the Yard concluded it to be the work of an immigrant whose goal was money. But according to the coroner, the victim was choked in such a way that they would have seen their killer from the front. Does this not strike you as peculiar? If what the killer wanted was money, he would have surely choked the victim from behind. I can only think this was someone who could approach their target from the front without arousing suspicion. 2 scenarios come to mind. Holmes? The first is that our killer knew the victim well. The second is that he played the part of a good man, a simple tourist, or perhaps a happy drunkard, those with whom you would naturally lower your guard. However, no evidence of a struggle was found at the scene, not even a witness's report of unusual screaming or shouting. That leads to one answer and only one. The killer and victim were friendly, and yet the police state it's nothing more than a robbery-homicide.
Well, no, it isn't quite so.
Next, we should look into the unsolved mystery involving a corpse found early in the morning near the Thames. All right, Holmes, that's enough. I'm only stating the facts. Perhaps so, but is this the time or the place? My point is that with information scarce, our current case will remain just as unsolved. Inspector Lestrade, I must insist you grant me an audience.
Well, she can't have gone far. Sergeant Ryan!
Yes, sir.
Start the search! I want every blade of grass within 5 kilometers of Buckingham Palace examined. She may well be right under our noses. Use every member on staff if you have to. We must return her to Her Majesty as soon as possible, and if so much as a single hair is out of place, you won't live to see tomorrow.
But Inspector, we can't possibly do a search that wide in so short a time. It's more impossible, really.
And that's what's keeping you here. Move, damn it!
Her? Then it must be a relative. It couldn't be a member of the royal family was kidnapped, could it? The sudden flicker of worry upon discovering too much came to me. I grew concerned, restless. How could this have happened? And here, of all places. What a thought! Breath held, I composed myself once more and listened closely for more information.
Inspector, Her Majesty the Queen arrives.
I see she has the sense to save us some time. Unlike that stubborn ass. You're one to call others stubborn.
She's coming here. Men, take your places and salute Her Majesty.
Nonsense. You needn't stand on ceremony. Her tone was moderate, with no stress on any syllable, and yet it was so lyrical that everyone stopped to listen. I gripped the curtain I was hiding behind on instinct. It was she, Queen Victoria. Certainly there was no need for her to command attention, for an attractive dignity was implied in her every manner, a dignity which could never be achieved with practice. How do you do? You are Sherlock Holmes and William H. Watson, correct?
It is a great honor to make your acquaintance, Your Majesty. And for me as well.
The pleasure is mine. I've great faith that both of you will solve this without incident.
Of course, Your Majesty.
Now, if we may speak of the case, you're to search for my dearest Chelsea. She is only 1 year old. The name was new to me. She can't be a princess of the throne, then. A relative, perhaps? If even distant ones were invited, then it's possible it's one of them. I listened closer, closer, and closer until I felt a tap on my shoulder. Ned! I turned to see a familiar face next to me.
Oh, hello again.
Hello! It was Watson, the boy who saved both me and my champagne glass.
Aha! Must be fate that we've met again so soon. What brings you to this part of the palace?
Oh, well, that is... All eyes were on me as I hunted for an excuse.
What's going on? Who are you?
It's, the palace, you see. It's so beautiful wherever I look, and I'm ever so thrilled to see it. So I found myself wandering here by chance. That was the best I could come up with.
What rubbish. Your lies appear right on your face. Here's what I think. You slipped in here, curiosity piqued, and were drawn in by our every word. You're a right disappointment.
Drat. He spoke to me the same way as he did the inspector, with complete, unfiltered arrogance and a sharp-featured face framed by dark hair that could have done with a trim. Or it may have been a respectable length, but only for him. It softened the angles of his nose, chin, and eyes, which were all very intimidating in sections, but uniquely handsome when arranged together. Oh, stop that, Emily! Now isn't the time to be admiring boys! Especially not that one, not this time.
Holmes, don't you think that's too direct? Forgive me, Watson. I'm afraid I don't have the knack for pleasantries as you do.
And just how did our officers miss a young girl? What do they think we pay them for?
You pay us to prevent criminal activity and to keep Her Majesty the Queen safe, sir.
Well, if you know that so well, you should know how serious it is when you've botched it all up, you idiot!
Holmes seemed content to ignore them, turning to me again.
You there. Can you swear not to breathe a word of anything you've heard here?
Yes, I wouldn't dare.
Then you'll never speak of being here.
I won't. You can take me at my word. Really?
One last question, then. What is your name?
It's Emily Whiteley.
I see. My name is Sherlock Holmes. Just the surname is fine. And with that, Miss Whiteley, I suggest you leave immediately.
A harsh order, but an appropriate one. I had no excuses left to stay, and so I excused myself politely. And then came an objection from the last person I expected.
I must ask that you wait, dear Emily.
Me? None other than the Queen requested me. Is something the matter, Your Majesty?
You are the daughter of Olivia Whiteley, aren't you?
Why, yes, I am. May I ask if you've met her?
We knew each other well, as it happens. She did a great deal for me in the past, and it pleases me as well to know that you, child, have blossomed into such a stunning young lady.
Oh? Did she remember me from somewhere? I had no idea she knew my mother, much less me. I beg your forgiveness, but I fear I don't remember our being acquainted.
That's no fault of yours. You were only a child when we met last.
I didn't realize. Her Majesty smiled, and the sight flushed me with warmth.
The world is lesser for the loss of your mother, including my own. There are so many things I should have liked to say to her were she still with us.
This was no rehearsed sentiment from royalty, but a genuine thought. She sincerely mourned my mother's death. Thank you for your kind words. She would have loved to hear them.
You know, you remind me of her. She, too, possessed a natural curiosity, always meddling in one thing or another.
Was she?
If I may ask, Emily, would you be so kind as to assist these gentlemen?
Me? For the case?
Your Majesty, I don't...
This matter cannot be resolved soon enough. There's little knowing what she may do next.
Her Majesty's expression was grave.
To ensure Chelsea comes home safely, I believe it would be best to work with as many hands as we can find. And you, much like Olivia, appear as if you have a special touch with animals.
I do? The assumption baffled me. It's very true that I loved caring for them when I lived in the countryside, but how would that help here?
Your Majesty, may I ask what you mean? Very well. I shall explain the case in detail.
She faced us as if ready to begin an intimate conversation.
Close to an hour ago, my Siamese Chelsea escaped the palace. So a cat, is it?
I see. So that's who Chelsea is. Come to think of it, Pendleton mentioned that the Siamese king's gift was a cat.
Today, for my part, is an important opportunity to deepen our relationship with Siam. I was to attend with Chelsea. The darling was an ever so thoughtful gift from their king. So thoughtful, in fact, he ensured her birthday was the same as mine. Everything began in the dressing room, where one of my maids was brushing her. I wished to pay her a visit before the ceremony. Now it bears mentioning here, and I regret to say this, that Chelsea is not particularly fond of me. Yet it wouldn't do for His Majesty to see her being so cold, and so I reached out my hand to pet her and hoped she would be friendly. I hadn't expected her to dislike even such a small touch. She jumped straight out of an open window, and we've yet to see her since. She was last seen running along the wall towards Hyde Park. An hour would be sufficient enough time for her to reach there, I should think.
I could not help but think of how ordinary a concern this was. She was a queen, a woman of poise and worldly power, and at the same time a simple human of compassion. I can't put my finger on why, but seeing her fret this much is rather sweet. Her heartache moved me. How could I not wish to help her? I must do something!
I understand, Your Majesty. Might you tell us of any distinguishing features?
In contrast, Holmes appeared to feel nothing, merely seeking details that would aid his work.
Certainly. Siamese cats are known for their deep blue eyes and nearly black ears, tails, and paws. Chelsea, however, is quite a rare case. Her tail is not black but white. You may also note her collar, which reads, "May the bond between Britain and Siam last evermore." With His Majesty present today, I was hoping to show her to him. The collar itself is crafted from the purest gold, fitted with 2 rare diaspora gemstones mined from Siam. Ah, then the collar alone is worth more than its fair share on the black market. Indeed it is. Chelsea may be in danger with someone to know its value. May. Almost assuredly. Imagine the stir from a wandering cat with a collar so extravagant. If only I had given her better care before this. I know well how to look after dogs, but cats are still new to me.
I imagine most would feel the same. Dogs were a popular pet in London, perhaps at the height of their popularity now, with dog shows being held by the upper class nearly every day. Cats, however, had no such excitement about them and were a rare sight.
I can only reason Chelsea leapt into the garden because she was afraid of me. But whether she likes it or not, her home is here with me. Please, bring her back before the ceremony begins at 2 o'clock. Chelsea is a symbol. To have her gone missing would be a terrible blight on the bond we've worked this past year to strengthen.
Your Majesty.
Emily Whiteley, Herlock Holmes. Very sincerely, I request your assistance in this matter. Please cooperate with Scotland Yard. Bring her home to me. Certainly, Your Majesty. But I wish to voice some concerns regarding Miss Whiteley.
If I may! I interrupted Holmes before I could stop myself. I'm hardly a detective, and I feel as though I'm still learning much about the ways of the world, so your concerns are valid. Rather, I mean that even with my lack of experience, I'm sure I can do something. So, if it pleases you, Your Majesty, I would love nothing more than to help.
Come now, miss. Little more reassurance wouldn't hurt. Speak with confidence. I'll solve the case, or some such. You don't have to mean it.
But I could never swear to Her Majesty so recklessly.
Not even a white lie. Again, I see your mother in you.
That small, warm smile of hers returned.
Your Majesty?
Inspector Lestrade, I see your reasoning, but to encourage a young girl to speak lies to your queen sounds most inappropriate, does it not?
No! Well, yes. So it is. That wasn't my...
Her sincerity will, I believe, help her to notice things your veterans would overlook. I should like to trust someone with a heart as golden as hers. Much like how I relied on Olivia in the past.
You were relying on my mother?
I have a feeling that necklace you wear will guide you, Emily.
Do you recognize it? It's the necklace of House Whiteley. I glanced down as she mentioned it.
Holmes Jr., her unique perspective might be of assistance to you. Would you look for Chelsea together with her? As you wish, Your Majesty. I have the utmost faith in you.
Nervous as I was, Her Majesty's kindly smile gave me the push I needed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll give it my all. And with that, I became part of the team in search of Chelsea.
Well, that was a surprise. Didn't expect Her Majesty to ask you for help. Oh, sorry, my apologies. A bit rude of me to say something like that to a young lady of your standing, I think.
Not at all. Please speak as you normally would. We're close in age, so it's only right.
Oh. Don't mind if I do, then. Besides, I haven't properly introduced myself. My name's William H. Watson. You can call me Watson, Miss,
Emily Whiteley. Emily will do just as well. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Watson.
Well, the pleasure's all mine, Emily.
Watson gave a broad grin.
If you don't mind, I was wondering something before. What rank is House Whiteley? I can't imagine that many nobles with close ties to the Queen.
Ah, but it was my mother who was close with her, not me. I was only invited for today's party.
Are you distant relatives, then? Representatives of some kind?
Goodness, no! How could I possibly be royalty? I'm neither distant nor close. I'm as surprised as you are, even. I wasn't aware of my mother's relationship with Her Majesty.
Then, well, why were you in that room?
I was eavesdropping. I didn't plan for this to happen, really.
I can't believe I was so on the mark with you. Even a child wouldn't sneak their way to a meeting with Her Royal Highness out of mere curiosity.
Holmes, unlike Watson, appeared irritated by the friendly conversation.
Well then, if we must, then we must. But don't get in our way. Are we understood, my little princess? Holmes! You can do better than that for a lady.
Not to worry, Holmes. I'm stronger than I look. I have the energy of 10 men.
That's so, Emily. Then again, you do seem rather strong for one of nobility. Bah.
I don't remember Holmes calling her my little princess. Dang. We first stopped where Chelsea was last seen. This wall is so tall, but I should think it no trouble at all for cats to climb up and take a stroll. Lestrade arrived not much later with someone new at his side.
This young woman is the maid who was looking after the cat.
It's as he says. I was brushing Chelsea right before she ran off. I chased after her straight away, of course, but unfortunately lost sight of her before long.
Could you tell us the exact spot you saw her last?
Yes, I'm quite certain it was somewhere around here.
She pointed to a corner of the wall.
I see. Let's check for paw prints. Watson, would you assist me? Coming!
We should look for clues as well.
Please do. We will check the east side, so we'll leave the other side to you, Inspector. Be on the watch for white hair scattered about. Give it your best now.
Oh, I will. They used to call me the Hound, I'll have you know. Whatever needs finding, I shall be the man to discover it.
Inspector Lestrade and his officers were then off towards the west.
Now then, let's find ourselves a cat. The yard certainly won't, so we don't have a choice in the matter. Oh, why do you think that? Look here.
Holmes pointed to the ground. It was covered in human footprints, and between them all was a shimmering something. He bent down to pick it up. That's it, isn't it?
It's a bit dirty, but I've little doubt. This is diasper. I've never seen the gemstone in person, but to my knowledge, it's an orthorhombic stone, mostly clear but possessing a slight yellow hue. Its primary crystalline structure is... Your lectures are, as always, stimulating to the mind, but for now we'd best focus on the cat. See this? More paw prints.
Next, Holmes pointed from the ledge and traced downwards. There aren't any others since yesterday's rain washed them away, yes? Then Chelsea's would be easier to find. Do you think she jumped over the wall from here?
Cats can jump rather extraordinary heights, true. But not that high. It's more natural to think she climbed this tree first before jumping over.
The logic was sound. The trail ended before a tree at the wall. Look at that! It's exactly as you suspected.
But Holmes, there's a chance these belong to another cat, isn't there? London does have its strays. Doubtful. If I may direct your attention here. Outside the wall, there are no trees to climb for security purposes. That makes identifying these paw prints a simple task. Very clever, my dear friend. So if we follow these... This way, Watson. All right. Come on, Emily. Watch your step now.
Wait! A rude awakening was waiting upon my first step.
My lady! So this is where you've been.
Pendleton!
Do you know how frightfully worried I was when I couldn't find you? Come, I shall escort you back to the party. Now. And what happened to your dress? It's been soiled with dirt. I'll have that cleaned before we return.
Forgive me, Pendleton, but I am truly busy. And with good reason.
Oh, busy. I should think climbing trees and running round behind my back does not constitute as busy.
I suppose there is a bit of truth to that.
My lady, must I drag you back kicking and screaming? Must I again inform you?
At this rate, Pendleton would be content to scold me for hours. I opened my mouth without a second thought. Pendleton, I spoke with Her Majesty.
Excuse me? My lady, I hope you don't think me so naive as to believe your tall tales.
I'm not lying. She asked me if I was the daughter of Olivia Whiteley. She knew Mother well, it seems.
Her Majesty knew Lady Olivia?
Yes. I cannot explain everything, but she did ask me for my help. She really did. Pendleton, please, let me go. I wish to help her. I begged, and with begging came the hindsighted pang that I may have played one too many tricks in the past for him to be convinced.
Very well. You may go.
Really? I couldn't believe it at first. He was letting me go? I had barely explained my reasoning. No objections whatsoever? You believe me when I say Her Majesty asked me for help.
You would prefer I doubt you? Well, if I must, and I fear I simply cannot believe you. Starting now, I have dedicated every fiber of my being to disbelief.
No, don't do that. That isn't what I meant.
Then I'm uncertain what the problem is. Do what you must, my lady.
Thank you. And I do hope you aren't disappointed. I know you spared no effort for today.
You needn't concern yourself. Now, don't you have something important to carry out? I can't think of anyone foolish enough to dally on a request from Her Majesty.
Bless you, Pendleton. And I should like to ask a favor of you. Would you mind?
I am always at your service.
I don't know if this will work, but